Farm Advocacy panel hosted by Rogue Farm Corps. My name is Matt Gordon, and I'm the Education Director with Rogue Farm Corps. I use he, him pronouns. I live in Northeast Portland. I'm on the traditional territory of the Clackamas and Cascade bands of Chinookan peoples. And I hope you all are having a good evening so far and dealing all right with the heat. I've got my little Mister bottle, so I hope you have your own ways of staying cool out there or inside. So just real quick on Rogue Farm Corps, for those who aren't familiar with our work, Rogue Farm Corps is an Oregon-based nonprofit with a mission to train and equip the next generation of farmers and ranchers. We have hands-on internship and apprenticeship programming where we connect aspiring farmers with established mentor farmers who host interns and apprentices at their sustainable farm operations for a whole full farm season, showing them the ins and outs of the day-to-day farm tasks and skills. And we offer a concurrent educational event series of classes and farm tours and discussions for the internship and apprenticeship participants throughout the season. And this is one of those events. So welcome to everybody who's working on a farm this year. We have about 16 interns and apprentices, mostly in the Portland and Rogue Valley areas this year, many of them who are joining us tonight. We also open up our events to other aspiring and beginning farmer participants throughout Oregon and in our local chapter areas. This advocacy panel tonight, we're opening up to the general public because we feel that a big part of doing this work is encouraging farmers and farm workers and the general public to be engaged and active in shaping and advocating for policy that works for farmers and farm workers and all of our communities. So our goals for this session, just real quickly, are just that, encouraging folks to advocate for policy that works for everyone and inspire and educate people on ways to be involved to do that for a more environmentally sound, a more economically viable future for Oregon farms, farm workers, and eaters. So tonight, I'm really excited to have a really super incredible group of presenters and advocates here this evening to discuss some of the organizing, advocacy, and policy work that they do that relates to agriculture and the food system, as well as talk a bit about how you can all get involved. Here with us tonight, we have from Oregon Food Bank, Adriana Svitkovich. From Picun, we have Ira Cuello Martinez. From the Farmers Market Fund, Molly Notariani. From Friends of Family Farmers, Alice Morrison. From Oregon Climate and Agriculture Network, we have Megan Kempel. And representing National Young Farmers Coalition as a NYFC fellow, we have Carly Boyer. So thank you all for being here tonight. And the format for tonight will be that we'll have short presentations from each panelist, and then a chance for a few questions for them after each presenter. And then after our last presenter, we'll just use the rest of our time for general Q&A and discussion. We are recording tonight during the presentation so that we can share that out with the participants that couldn't make it tonight. But we will stop recording when we enter the general discussion period and Q&A period after the last panelist. So as you have questions that come up, please write your questions into the chat box. Or if we're in a Q&A session, you can unmute yourself. I'll try to remember to give you the Zoom permission to unmute yourself during those portions. And yeah, I'm also joined tonight by Bobby Wilson, our Rogue Valley chapter coordinator, who's helping me facilitate. Hi, Bobby. So, you know, between her and I, we will, any chat questions, we'll try to get to the right panelist. So I think that's all the housekeeping I have. Anything else I'm missing, Bobby, before we dive into our first presenter? Okay. Thanks, everybody. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adriana with Oregon Food Bank.
Great. Hi, y'all. I'm Adriana Svitkovich, she, her pronouns. I'm joining from Portland, also, same as Matt. This is where the Oregon Food Bank headquarters are located, although we serve the entire state in a big network. And I work as a community food systems organizer with Oregon Food Bank. I support people who are doing local grassroots food system organizing in their town. And I'm not technically on our advocacy, volunteers, and organizing department, but I do work closely with them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Oregon Food Bank advocacy, and then also I'm going to do a very rapid overview of how you could get involved and learn more about the legislative sessions that happen in Oregon every year. But I also just wanted to start by saying I also work on a farm, and I understand that most of you just spent the day outside in the extreme heat. And so I hope you're eating food and drinking water, and I'm going to try and stay engaging for you. But no worries if you just need to like turn your camera off and like listen while lying flat on the ground. Yeah, I work at 47th Ave Farm. If you are ever wanting to talk about that opportunity or like looking for a job in farming, let me know. My contact info will be at the end of this presentation. So let me get to that. So Oregon Food Bank advocacy. At Oregon Food Bank, our mission is to eliminate hunger and its root causes, because no one should be hungry, which is a very short statement, but there's a lot wrapped up in that. And we, as a food bank, obviously care about getting food to people today, but we recognize that you can't eliminate hunger without eliminating the root causes of hunger and all of the systems that feed hunger. And we definitely believe that to do that, you have to center racial and social justice in the work that we do. And that goes for our advocacy work as well. So at Oregon Food Bank, we have a policy leadership council. This is a group of folks who've been impacted by food insecurity and in general systemic injustices that contribute to food insecurity. And it's folks from Oregon State, and they put together the policies that Oregon Food Bank is going to work on. So that might be like ballot things or also legislative session topics. So it's tasked, this council is tasked with guiding us. And then they also are tasked with figuring out in general, like our systems change platform, like where are the areas and systems we should be focusing on to work on this huge mission of trying to get rid of hunger in Oregon. And the two, after the most recent year of working together, they've identified that they want Oregon Food Bank to really focus in on housing for all, so like stable and living conditions that contribute to people's well-being, and then also working on healthy environment, healthy people, which is focused on food systems and infrastructure that are built on clean, sustainable, and healthy, health-promoting practices. So those are like some of our guiding lights for this next upcoming year. And in addition to the work that we have guided by our Policy Leadership Council, we also have a lot of staff that work in coalition with other organizations. So we're part of, this slide is so boring because it's really just logos, but I just wanted to share that, you know, we work with Oregon Community Food Systems Network, and we work on Oregon Ready and One Oregon, which are immigrant justice focused, and the Oregon Housing Alliance and Oregon Economic Justice Roundtable and Double Up Food Bucks and Transforming Justice, just like so many ways that we see that we can be louder, stronger, more powerful politically if we are working in coalition. I feel like that's a principle that goes for us as individuals, civilians, when we get together and we, you know, share a same message across hundreds of people, it comes across more clearly and louder and is often heard better in our political system. Same thing goes for organizations. So yay for coalitions. This year, Oregon Food Bank has been focusing on a couple things. So we had our February legislative session, which check, did that. Our Policy Leadership Council had us focus on immigrant rights and housing and reimagining public safety and emergency food funding. And I think for the first time ever, all of the policies that Oregon Food Bank was endorsing passed in the legislative session. So that was amazing. We also have worked on the May midterm elections, even though we are a 501c3, which technically means we cannot endorse any political candidates. So we really focus during elections on general get out the vote, like getting people registered, getting people to submit their ballots. And we also, this year, for the May midterm elections and for the November elections, we have been asking all of the people running for governor to answer questions about hunger and the root causes of hunger, and then sharing publicly their answers. So I can share one of the links where we have some of these questions. I can do it. Okay, I did it. Yay. This is our gubernatorial questionnaire that we sent out. And then we also have, in the next year in 2023 is going to be another legislative session, and our Policy Leadership Council will tell us what we should be focusing on during that session, which probably starts in February. I don't think the dates are set yet, but someone could correct me on that. So if any of this sounds interesting, if you're like, that's a cool mission, I agree and care about those things, ways to get involved in our Oregon Food Bank advocacy work. We have Ending Hunger Power Nights. Those are more phone bank, text bank focused things that sort of the target of what you're working on changes depending on the time of year and what's happening. And then we also have a couple different newsletters that folks can get involved with. So I will also share those in the chat really quickly. This will be the first one is Ending Hunger Power Nights. And then these next two are some of our newsletters. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm just gonna fill up this chat with like a lot of links. So apologies, I think. So
No,
that is Oregon Food Bank.
Not necessary at all.
Okay, it's like, yes, I want you to have them, and I will be sharing my slides later, but I want you to have them right now. That's a little bit about Oregon Food Bank advocacy. I'm gonna switch gears now and talk about legislative sessions, what the legislation, what is our who are, I can't even say the words right. Here's a legislative mini training. As I just demonstrated, I am a great person to lead this because I have not been working on legislative advocacy for super long, and I just learned a lot of these things, and I'm just going to be sharing with you things that I just learned and have the assistance of the other very experienced people on this panel to like add their wisdom in their presentations and in the chat while I talk about this. So I'm focusing in on getting involved during legislative sessions, which is like a very specific time and way of getting politically engaged. But obviously there are so many other ways to be engaged that are just as valid. And I'm not going to go into them right now. And we need all of these forms of people taking political action to try and end some of the big issues like hunger and its root causes in our state. So with that, here's a quick and dirty explanation of Oregon state government, because I did not know that I had state senators and state representatives and federal senators and federal representatives until like a couple years ago. So it turns out in Oregon, we have our own state Senate and state House of Representatives. There are 30 state senators, so 30 districts broken up by about equal population size, and each of those districts has a senator. And then there are 60 members of the House of Representatives, so 60 districts, each about the same population size. And then in addition to that, we have our federal folks who are in Congress. So we have 5, soon to be 6 federal representatives, and then we have 2 federal senators representing our state. but we're focusing in on the state politics. So when I keep talking about a legislative session, that is when all of our state senators and our state House of Representatives folks come together to make decisions about policies and bills that will become law. They make decisions about budget, and they do that during the legislative sessions, which are either a long session, which lasts 5 months and happens on the odd numbered years, or there's a short session, which is 5 weeks and happens on the even numbered years. So this year, 2022, we had a short session, 5 weeks. Next year, 2023, we're going to have a long session, which will be 5 months. And generally more happens at the long session, and the short session is for like finishing up things or passing stuff that needs to happen within a certain more time sensitive timeline. But sometimes huge things happen during the short session, like farm worker overtime passes. So it's not out of the question. I think it's just less common. And the long sessions are really what people in this legislative advocacy world are like really getting ready for. And a lot of stuff happens during the long sessions. I'm saying all of this, and it might feel a little like all these people out there doing things, but truly, like if you think about how policies get changed and passed in our state, you either are you yourself voting on a ballot as a civilian, or these people are voting on your behalf during a legislative session. So they are supposed to be acting in the interest of the community, and they are your representative. And that leads me to ways that you find out who your representatives are. I'm gonna also now put another link into the chat. So
And
this,
just real quick, time is getting real close here.
Great. Well, that's okay, because I'm going to zoom through this part. This is really, I would say, the most important part, which is how to find your representatives. If you go to the website that I just put in the chat, you enter your current address and zip code, and it will pull up who your senators and representatives for the state are, and federally. You know, take a screenshot, save this website, write down these people's names and their contact info, because it is very okay for you to contact them directly, either with just like a personal message around a policy, and also if one of these other organizations says, we're all sending emails that say this, then you know who to contact with that message. Okay, and then I'm just gonna very briefly talk about during a legislative session, you may hear about like a bill with a certain number, or that something is going to be voted on during the legislative session. And I just want to quickly share how you would find out what bills are happening and how to learn more information about them. So I will also put this into the chat. I just call this the OLIS website. And if you go to this website in the homepage, during a legislative session, you would be able to search for bills by clicking on the little bills icon in the corner, and then you can search by the bill name or number or a keyword. You can't try this right now because we're not in a legislative session, but when we are, this is how you find out more information about what is being decided during the legislative session. And my final tip will be, you can figure out how, or you can sign up for email updates. So like during this past legislative session, farm worker overtime, people were super interested in. And so you could go to that homepage, search for the bill, go to the bill's homepage, and then you can sign up and subscribe for email updates. And that would have told you when there's a public hearing, when you could provide your testimony, when the bill was moving to a new committee, or when it might be voted on. So those key updates for the bills and the policies that you really care about. This is how you can stay in the know. I have more info in the slides, but for time purposes, you're going to see that when the slides get shared with you, and you can go back and reference them when it's very relevant, which will be this February. I'm just going to skip to the last, past all of these bajillion screen photos, to my final slide, which has my contact info. And I can also put that in the chat. But again, really happy to talk about Oregon Food Bank advocacy, 47th Ave Farm, Portland, any of those topics. I did the Rogue Farm Corps class series last year and learned a ton. And yeah, would love to connect with all of you. And that's all. Back to you, Matt.
Thank you, Adriana. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the little mini training. I think that's really helpful just to kind of get a brief overview. And all the links that Adriana shared and anyone shares tonight, I'll collect and send those out via email too, along with the slideshow. So yeah, are there any questions, quick clarifying questions for Adriana? And I will let you all unmute yourselves if I can figure out how to do that. Okay, now you should be able to unmute yourself if you have a question for Adriana. Or put it in the chat. Okay, we're gonna go on to Ira with Pekun.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. My name is Ira Cuello Martinez. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Director at PECUN, Oregon Farm Worker Union. And PECUN stands for Pineros y Campesinos Unidos del Noroeste, which in English translates to Tree Planters and Farm Workers United in the Northwest. I got connected to this work because I deeply care about farm worker rights. Having worked in the fields when I was a kid with my parents working in agriculture for a good amount of time, and continue to have family members who work in agriculture. These issues and the working conditions that they face is something that's really near and dear to my heart, and recognizing how agriculture plays a crucial role within our communities, within our societies. And we want to make sure that farm worker voices are also being heard, and the issues are being addressed when advocating for the different policy changes and systems changes who we want to see. So I'm going to go ahead and get started to give a little bit more context around who is PECUN. So as mentioned, we are Oregon's Farm Worker Union. We're based in an Oregon Latinx community known as Woodburn, Oregon. If you ever have the time to visit Woodburn, it's a beautiful small city, town, and you'll find a lot of gems throughout Woodburn. And it's also one of the most vibrant agricultural cities in the state. In fact, I believe it has the most farm workers in the county than any other county in the state, about 13,000 out of the 86,000 farm workers who reside in Oregon. And our mission is to empower farm workers and working Latinx families in Oregon through three different ways: through community organizing, by increasing Latinx representation in elections, and through policy advocacy on both the national and state levels. And we really envision in Oregon where farm workers and Latinx working families are empowered and have a say in the decisions that affect them, both in the workplace and in the communities where they live. So we have actually expanded a little bit beyond just farm workers and the workplace, but also working class Latinx families, and also just having healthier communities in the state of Oregon. And I also wanted to share with you all a little bit about our theory of change, making sure we have a relationship with each other, and to the communities, both locally and globally. And so here you see the three different aspects of our work. Through community outreach and base building, we're doing year-round outreach to workers, making sure that the workers feel empowered to advocate for their rights and for themselves, and doing some leadership development with those same workers as well, making sure our community spaces are deeply rooted in the cultural connections that they have with either their home country or the communities here in Woodburn. And we do, as mentioned, grassroots policy advocacy that are really based on strong coalitions. As Adriana mentioned, a lot of this work is possible through the coalition work and many partners who support these different policies. And we advocate for progress. So that means we're pro-farm worker, working families, pro-immigrant, and do the policy at the state and federal level. And we also do organizing. So we believe in people-powered movements. We work to organize around elections, around issues, and empowering workers in the workplace. And we do that through a variety of tools. We have a C3, which is our way to do some advocacy and education with our base. C4 allows us to do the the electoral organizing that has a crucial role in doing some of these policy systems change, and through the PAC work as well. And so, how do we come up or develop our policy and advocacy priorities? I think that's something that folks may be curious about, or just want to get a better sense of, how do these ideas develop and formulate into actually becoming policies to change the systems within Oregon and within our communities. And we do this through hosting annual membership conventions, where towards the end of the year, whether that be in October, November, or early December, we host an annual convention with our members to talk about the different issues that folks are experiencing in their workplace or in their communities, and have discussions around what are the different areas or priorities that we want to achieve within the next year or two or a couple of years. Sometimes these policies may take more than a year or two to actually have fully developed and get passed through the legislator or through agency rulemaking. So we have to understand, what is the feasibility to pass these policies, and what is it going to take to actually develop a campaign to be successful, and making sure that we engage with the different stakeholders involved with these systems change. And during this annual convention, we the members themselves actually vote on the policy priorities. So all the different issues that we work on come from our base, come from our members, and so that's why we are farm worker led, because many of the folks who are on staff are either former farm workers, are children of farm workers, or have relatives who work in agriculture, and all deeply care about this issue and want to make sure that the work that we do aligns with the experiences that the workers are facing in their workplaces or in their communities. And so in this image, you actually see one of the first membership meetings that happened in 1988. PECUN started in 1985, so this is the third annual convention that they hosted. It was at a church, and they talk about, again, the issues that they're facing in Woodburn, and what different tactics, strategies, or approaches they want to take to change what's happening and to improve the working conditions, improve living conditions for farm workers. So now I shared a little bit about, how do we decide or come up with these different policy and advocacy priorities, but now I want to flip into what are some things that we have been working on over these last few years. And Adriana actually already alluded to this, but farm worker overtime was actually something that was voted on by our membership during the 2019 annual convention. So that was 3 years ago when that conversation initially began. And as I mentioned, it may take a couple years before we actually see success in these different campaigns that we're working on. So for instance, in farm worker overtime, it took 2.5 years to actually pass. That included the research of the policy, the development of that policy, the education behind the exclusion, and want to make sure that legislators, community members, and our partners are informed about the reasons for this exclusion, and then also just the lobbying. So there's a lot of lobbying that goes into advocacy, and so a lot of our time is spent talking to legislators, sharing the experiences that we hear from farm workers, and making sure that we propose solutions that benefit and change some of the conditions that farm workers have been facing. If folks aren't aware, farm workers have been excluded from overtime pay since 1938, when the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed. And this exclusion was really based off of white supremacy and racism at the time, when the majority of workers, farm workers at the time, were Black and African American, and especially in the South, where they did not want to provide the same economic or political power as other workers in that region. And so that legacy of racism and white supremacy carried on through these next decades. And we know that changes are hard, and we are cognizant of those time to transition through being able to pay farm workers overtime. And so for that reason, there were some negotiations and compromises that had to be made by extending the timeline to achieve overtime pay for farm workers to 5 years, and also providing some economic support through tax credit from the state to help with this transition of paying farm workers overtime, which is something that they have been asking for some time. And now by 2027, they will receive that same benefit as every other worker after 40 hours in a work week. So this is one example that we do policy advocacy. This is through the legislator. So we, again, had to talk to many different representatives and senators throughout the state to highlight this issue and talk to them about the potential solutions that we see to change this policy. The other one I wanted to talk about today as well is with regards to wildfire smoke. And in this image, you see a very dystopian scenario where farm workers are outside in these red, blue, and red orange skies. It's really smoky, and you can't tell from this photo, but most of these workers are using either a cloth mask or a bandana, and it's not sufficient to protect workers from the wildfire smoke that they are inhaling into their lungs, into their bodies. And so something that happened in 2020 was that Governor Brown had signed an executive order to address some of these concerns. And one of those directives was towards Oregon OSHA, the Oregon Safety and Health, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. They are the ones charged with developing protections and rules to protect workers from these extreme weather conditions. And so they were directed to develop these rules. And with regards to wildfire smoke, we wanted to, again, really base the recommendations for policies and protections off of what our members were suggesting, whether that's using N95 respirators, which is more effective to prevent the inhalation of wildfire smoke, and also just wanted to communicate, what are the different levels of air quality index that existed as wildfire smoke is present in their workplace. So this is one area that is not necessarily through the legislature where we're talking to different senators or representatives, but it's actually talking to agencies and to other stakeholders, whether that's agricultural stakeholders, employers, other employer representatives, other worker advocates, public health experts, environmental and climate justice groups, all to get a better understanding of what the concerns and issues are and what's the best way to really mitigate the impact that it has on workers themselves. And so wildfire smoke, the rule was actually adopted earlier this spring in May, and it went into effect in July 1st, 2022, and will remain in effect permanently. So that's a permanent rule that now exists, which will protect farm workers and any worker that's really outside during these extreme weather conditions. Another related issues with excessive heat. And so similarly, again, Governor Brown had directed Oregon OSHA to develop standards for protections on for workers impacted by excessive heat, extreme heat. And there's really urgency to pass these policies because we hear from workers what the effects are on them and on their health and their well-being. But it even results in very tragic and unfortunate outcomes, such as the passing of Sebastian Francisco Perez, which had passed away during last year's historic and record-breaking heat wave. And in this case, Sebastian was working by himself, laying down irrigation pipes, and his body was not found until after a couple hours, where they noticed he wasn't showing up for his lunch, for his break. And the fact that he was working by himself in the extreme weather and extreme heat is really concerning. So fortunately, now the rules did include a provision where workers either have to be observed by their employers or supervisors, or that there's a buddy system that's integrated into the workplace, that no one's working by themselves in extreme heat. So that's one of the outcomes that we saw, and really a pivotal moment in our advocacy efforts is, and it's very unfortunate that it took tragedy to see some urgency from our state and to build up this energy and momentum. But we want to make sure that, his death does not go in vain, and we really use it to advance these policies as much as possible. So now we do actually have the strongest protections in the country for workers who are working outside in excessive heat. And as we all can tell by this week's weather, it's really hot. And so fortunately, these protections are in place, and it's really basic protections like having access to cool water, having access to shade for breaks, having an emergency medical plan in place, and then having additional paid breaks once the temperatures are exceeding 90 degrees or more. And so these are another way that we have been engaging with Oregon OSHA through different rulemaking advisory committee meetings, proposing different rules and protections for these workers, and also just taking into account, what has worked in the past, what's not working, what can we learn from our neighbor states in California and Washington who had some sort of rules already in place, and how can Oregon go above and beyond to ensure that no other worker dies or is impacted by these extreme weather conditions, whether it be through excessive heat, whether it be through wildfire smoke. We know that these weather conditions are only going to increase in frequency and in intensity. So it's very important for us to stay engaged in these different rules and adapt to the changing climate that we're facing nowadays. And similarly with farmers and growers, recognizing that there's also crop loss that comes with the excessive heat, with the droughts, with these extreme weather conditions, with the winter storms. So this is an issue that we will continue to work on and collaborate with other agricultural stakeholders to adapt to the new climate realities that we face in Oregon. Growing up in Oregon my whole life, I've never seen excessive heat to the extent that we have. I know it gets hot over the summer. Sometimes it's over 90 degrees, but to have multiple days over 100 degrees it's a pretty new phenomenon for myself. And so we want to make sure that workers and anyone really who's working outside of farmers and ranchers know how to best protect themselves when working in these different types of conditions. And
pretty close to time there, Ira, just to let you.
Sounds good. So I'm here on my last slide. So how can we get involved? It's really, as mentioned before, it's through coalition. A lot of this work wouldn't be possible. It's not just Bekun who's doing this advocacy, but we work closely with, many folks who are in the panel today, with Oregon Food Bank, with Friends of Family Farmers, with the several different panelists here, and just throughout the state, to making sure that this is a statewide campaign and coalition. And so we always welcome working together within these different spaces. Feel free to also follow us on our newsletter. I'll drop a link to our website here soon after I'm done sharing my screen. But yeah, we are always welcoming different ways to engage in these campaigns. And so if you have any questions or interest to get involved with our policy priorities, or if you have a campaign that you want Bekun to either be supportive in one way or another, we're always happy to review and run these different policy proposals through our base, through our members. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today with you all. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'm happy to answer them through the chat. And I'll pass it back to Matt to keep us going with this amazing panel.
Thank you so much, Ira. I really appreciate it. And it's been fantastic to see some of these major policy shifts over the last, year that I've been really paying attention. So yeah, like for example, the heat rule is really important now. We see it every day right now. So I'm gonna give folks the chance to unmute themselves if they have questions, or drop a question in the chat. Anyone have a question for Ira?
I just wanted to ask quickly, Ira, so who can become a member of Bekun, and how do folks join the organization if they want to join as members?
Yeah, great question. So we have two different sets of membership programs. One of them is called our Legacy membership, which is specifically for farm workers. So these folks would pay $40 to receive the services and become a member. Services include having access to our service center at Bekun, having discounted rates when receiving legal consultation for immigration, and also support with either translation or interpretation of different materials or events. So that's the one way to get involved. The other way is through our general, I think it's called a workers membership, or a popular membership, and that's generally for anyone else who's not a farm worker, whether they're another Latinx worker, an ally, a partner, anyone else outside of the farm worker scope would receive the same services, but instead of $40 a year, it would be $100 a year. So those are two different types of membership. I will include a link to both our website and their membership details in the chat here shortly.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks. Any other questions for Ira before we move on? And again, feel free to drop your questions in the chat throughout. Even if they're even if they're general.
I have a quick question if, yeah, we have time for that.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, and you might have touched on this. Sorry, I'm in and out, just leaving work. But kind of like what are the mechanisms to hold the owners and managers accountable to these kinds of policy recommendations? I mean, like my boss, he's like, in the know, like Rogue Farm Corps, and like he doesn't even know about some of these kinds of things. So I would imagine that a lot of the like bigger owners and managers like either don't know about it, don't care about it. What are some of the like measures that workers are taking, or that the legal framework for holding them accountable to these standards?
Yeah, that's a really great question. But I would say, we do have our state labor agencies who are in charge of enforcing these new rules, laws, regulations. For instance, with the heat and smoke rules, that's under the jurisdiction of Oregon OSHA to ensure that employers are aware of the rules, and in case they're not, that workers can actually submit a complaint in case there's ongoing workplace violations, labor violations occurring in the job site. And then when it comes to like overtime or your salary or your wages, if there's any wage theft that occurs in the workplace, that falls under the jurisdiction of BOLI, the Bureau of Labor and Industries in Oregon. And these rules are fairly new, so I'm not surprised that many owners, farmers, ranchers, growers may not be aware of them. And so it's really important that they access the resources that are available through Oregon OSHA. And I know that other organizations provide those resources also to farmers and ranchers. I will say that enforcement is definitely one of the areas of concern and areas of improvement when it comes to labor rights. And it's something that we will be looking towards 2023's legislative session to address, because we often hear from farm workers that the rules are either not being followed, that the employers, even after asking them to provide shaded breaks or water, that they're not receiving those different rights that they already have under these new rules. So it's really an ongoing issue about enforcement. And I think just an issue of generally dissemination of information from our state labor agencies to the employers themselves. I think that's something we've been hearing from some farmers and ranchers as well, is that they were unaware of these changes. So it's, I think, crucial to continue having these conversations and having spaces to actually talk about these different changes in the law and the rules, whether that be through Oregon OSHA, through BOLI, through a different advocacy organization, to a nonprofit. I know many organizations and agricultural stakeholders are represented by different organizations. So that's, yeah, I think a response to your question, Drew.
Thanks, Ira.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Drew, for the question. All right, we're going to move on. Molly Notariani, you're up next from Farmers Market Fund.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Does that look good? Can everyone see it? Yes? Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, it looks good.
Okay. The two screen thing always kind of catches me off guard. I'm going to start my timer. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Molly Notariani, she, her. I'm based in Portland as well, but I work across the state. I actually live just a few blocks from Matt. And I'm so excited to be here tonight. Thank you for inviting me, and just inspired by all of the awesome expertise on this panel. So yeah, like I said, I'm the executive director of Farmers Market Fund. We coordinate the Double Up Food Bucks program. And my background is as a farmer, as a farmers market manager. And I spent a little bit of time working at FOF as well, and have been at my current role for about 4.5 years. And yeah, I'm excited to tell you about our advocacy. Before I start, just want to give a brief background on this program in case you're not familiar with it. It's a SNAP matching program, and so it's simple, it's elegant. Basically, for every $1 of SNAP that a shopper spends at a participating farmer's market, they get an extra $1 to spend on local fruits and veggies, up to $20 per visit per day. And so yeah, pure, simple, wonderful. And we really see it as a triple win, right? It's helping these farmers make more money, It's helping families bring home more food, and it's also keeping all of that money in our local economy. So USDA just put out a new survey that actually said every dollar of SNAP that's spent at a farm direct outlet, or so not even just a local business, but a farmer's market or a farm or a CSA, actually generates $3 in economic activity. So this is a really amazing and powerful driver for our communities. I want to start by saying I am not an expert. My first dipping my toes into this rodeo was in 2018. I may not have known how a bill became a law. So I think there is a steep learning curve, and also there's room for all of us. You don't have to be an expert. I think there's lots of different ways to be involved. Lots of ways to engage in advocacy, like my slide says. And what my organization and my coalition for Double Up Food Bucks has done is something very specific, and that's going to be kind of what I talk about today. So we worked with the Oregon legislature to get funding for our programming, which is one of the many things you can do and has been a success and very impactful and has allowed us to grow. And I think as a kind of a tangent to that, we also have had the great kind of unexpected side effect of being able to do education within the Capitol around our program, and also develop relationships both with elected officials and with lots of different community organizations. So those have been the things that have been especially meaningful and impactful for us. So a very brief summary of the Double Up Food Bucks in the Oregon legislature. Like I said, it's a super collaborative work. Big shout out to Oregon Food Bank, who was one of the key people who really put a lot of effort and support and mentorship when we started this work. The Oregon Farmers Markets Association, the Pacific Northwest CSA Coalition, and American Heart Association are also kind of the key pieces of our coalition. And we got 1.5 million in 2019, more than doubled that in 2021, which has been well timed given the increase in food insecurity in our state, and then leverage that state initial state grant to get a federal grant that required one-to-one matching funds. I think that this has come up a lot of times already. This is just a slide of logos, but I think collaboration is so critical. This is just a selection of people, you know, that all found meaning in our work and supported us. And so I feel there would be no way to do it without everyone. One thing that we started in the last legislative session, which I'm really proud of and excited about, is, you know, we saw all of these kind of amazing different projects focus on food security, but we'd never really come together to kind of share our strategy and develop shared talking points, because, you know, sometimes we would be having a meeting with an elected official and they'd say like, hey, but what about this other thing? And it's like, that's not my program, but like, I would love to be able to be knowledgeable and lift it up. So this also happened because in the last session, it was COVID, the Capitol was closed. And so, you know, a lot of this can sometimes be bumping into each other in the hallway and talking. And so we developed this coalition that met every week, and then actually developed this physical policy agenda that was used, we heard, by the people on the Ways and Means Committee, who are the people who write the budget. So it worked. I'm going to kind of breeze through some of the impacts of Double Up Food Bucks over the last few years. So this was the impact from our first appropriation from the state. Did I just see someone raise their hand? No. Okay. So kind of following those three main wins that we saw, families are saying that they have more food in their house and that their health is improving. Farmers are saying that they're making more sales at the farmers markets and that their customer base is actually expanding. And then what would have been 1.5 million from the state, it actually leveraged 5.8 million in local economic activity. There's another way to look at it. And one thing that I didn't say, and I should have, is that farmers markets are not the only site where you can use Double Up Food Bucks. We realize, of course, that there are farmers markets are great, and there's lots of barriers to accessing them. So we also partner with Oregon Food Bank to offer the program at grocery stores, and the Pacific Northwest CSA Coalition, who offers the program at CSA. So really it comes together to be this beautiful kind of cohesive patchwork that helps Oregonians get more fruits and veggies wherever they live. And here's a chart. You can see just a huge growth in the program. And yeah, they more than doubled in 2021. So I thought I'd do a quick update on some of our plans for this year. I think the thing that we are the most excited about is actually doubling the amount of match that shoppers can get every day. It was $10, now it's $20. That's really consistent feedback that we've heard that for some of the effort or the cost, that $10, I mean, especially now, $10 does not go very far. So this is a big change, and we hope to be able to continue to do it forever. Another piece that I'm excited about is our growth grant, which provides support to farmers markets who, just like farmers, you know, are small, don't have a ton of capacity, often are run by volunteers to help them run successful programs. And then we've really been able to integrate feedback from shoppers that are going to help lift barriers to participation in the program. Here we go, 79 markets in 27 counties. It's the biggest year in the history of Double Up. I'm not going to read all these words in the spirit of time. Wanted to talk a little bit more about kind of the different ways that we center and integrate community feedback. The first is working with Hunger Free Oregon's SNAP Client Advisory Board. It's as the name says, a group of SNAP clients. And since 2019, we've had an ongoing relationship with them where they offer feedback on their experiences with the program and ways to improve it. And then we reflect back what we've done and see what they think. The Oregon Food Bank has an ambassador program, so working with specific people from specific communities to help get them engaged around Double Up food bucks, and then surveys of shoppers and focus groups. I think this is probably something that many people might know, but I'm going to bring it up anyways because I think it ties to the integrating the feedback. Food insecurity in Oregon is not evenly felt, right? Certain populations continually experience the highest levels of food insecurity, and that's kind of driving the work as well. This is a big chart. I'm going to just read down the things on the right. So these are all specific feedback that we've received and actions we've taken. So increasing the match. I think another thing that we've heard is that this physical currency can feel stigmatizing to shoppers. It's kind of hearkening back to old school food stamps. And so it doesn't feel great to be walking around. And so we're going to do a pilot of a digital currency. One thing that I'm really proud of is introducing a shopper experience training for all of the farmers market staff. So we've heard from SNAP shoppers that they've had really traumatizing experiences. And so being able to help market managers and vendors treat their shoppers with more dignity, and then improving the cultural relevancy of our outreach is part of it too. Alrighty. So goals for the upcoming legislative session. I mean, I think haven't talked to my coalition about this. So these are just my own organization's goals, but I think we want to be able to essentially get the funding that allows us to continue to expand the program, to meet the needs of shoppers, to be able to continue to respond to the feedback from the people who are participating in the program, to be able to continue to maintain that increased $20 match level, and then also to kind of balance expansion with long-term sustainability, right? It was an unusual situation, I think, in the last legislative session where the state had so much money because they got all of this money from the feds. And so wanting to be able to, grow the program with a mind to sustainability. So that brings me to the reason that I am here. And I think you're all here too because you believe this, but just really want to echo how much your voice matters. This is specifically to my experience in the Oregon legislature, but I think it's relevant everywhere. Your elected officials really want to hear from you. And, they want you to tell your story and your experiences, being a farmer, being an eater, being a person who uses SNAP, any of the identities that you have, all of the ones I haven't listed. So there's a lot of ways to do it. And I think that all of the people who are on this webinar, please connect with them, sign up for their email list, and they'll give you specific examples. But, schedule a meeting, send an email, make a phone call, and leave a message. Just saw a chat. What is a lobby day? Okay. Submit written. I will tell you that in a minute. sometimes there's bills and they have these hearings. And so, it can be easy to write a little piece. You can post it online on that OLIS website that we saw. And then it lives on and the legislators can know all of the people that support these bills. I know that FOF does lobby day, so perhaps they will talk about this more in their presentation, but essentially in the olden days, when we were all meeting in the Capitol, organizations would sometimes try to choose a specific day, maybe a strategic day, where basically they would bring a lot of supporters and stakeholders in and then schedule meetings for all of them with their elected officials. So it's kind of like a fun, experience for all of those folks to be together and learn about the bills that the organization is working on, also get to meet people who share their interests, and then also get kind of a 101 on how to talk with their elected official. And yeah, does that answer the question of what is a lobby day? I've never coordinated one because my organization is small. I've just been fortunate in that my bill has been lifted up in other organizations' lobby days. Okay, here we go. There's a picture of a lobby day. So that's FOF's lobby day. And as frightening as it is to have to speak to a Microsoft Teams meeting of elected officials, I think that I don't actually know if the Capitol is going to be open for the next legislative session or not, but I do think that some of the innovations that have happened where you don't necessarily need to physically move your body to Salem anymore, especially for folks who maybe live in even farther off corners of the state, I think hopefully there'll be even greater access for kind of being able to show up and make those connections in the future. Sorry, Alice said she used the same photo in her presentation. It was a good one. This is not something that anyone needs. This is a very detailed white paper I wrote for, but if you want more, it's there and you can see it when you read the PDF. So I think that I will stop there and say thank you. If you want to get in touch with me, please feel free to send me an email. The first website is my organizations, and the second is a kind of a joint portal for all of the Double Up Food Bucks programs across the state. So a one-stop shop to learn about how all of it works and how you can participate. So yeah, any questions?
Any questions for Molly? Now let me let you all unmute yourselves. Okay, there you go. Getting some appreciation there. I have a question for you, Molly. So you mentioned that Double Up Food Bucks can be used not only at farmers markets, but at some grocery stores and to buy CSA shares.
Yeah.
What are the numbers again there in terms of participation and certain CSA farms or number of grocery stores currently?
Ooh, I could guess, and I might not be totally correct.
That's
I think I wrote it down.
Huh?
I wrote it down. 13 grocery stores, and I think you wrote 34 CSAs.
Oh, amazing. Thank you, whoever.
I think it was on one of those
Yeah.
slides back there.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
I was just wondering, what are the barriers to increasing those numbers specifically, not the farmers markets ones, which seem like they're higher currently, right? But what about the grocery?
Yeah, well, I think that let's see. I think two things. One is the CSA program has grown dramatically in the last few years, and I think it's continuing to grow. I think that the onboarding for that is, I think, a bit more complicated for the farmers, and so it just needs to be the right fit. The other thing that is interesting with CSA, right, is that there's been there's a set amount of CSA shares, and so if people who are not paying with SNAP buy all those shares before folks who are paying with SNAP and want to use Double Up Food Bucks, there's kind of like a supply demand issue. So I think that has been part of the challenge there. I think that the grocery program is continuing to grow rapidly and is limited only by funding that is available to support it, honestly. And the Oregon Food Bank has been doing some really incredible work that probably they should get to talk to you about how it works as far as really prioritizing BIPOC owned and grocery stores with culturally specific products. And really kind of choosing the counties in the state that don't have participating farmers markets or CSAs.
Thanks. And you've got a question here from Roberta, who says, thanks. Do you have a short video for shoppers I could send out to Native WIC clients and community?
We don't, and we know that we need one, and we're actually in the process of creating one. It's like a visual explainer video and should be done, I would say, by late summer. So I will send it to you when it's ready. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Kiva Grocery in Eugene is one of the
Yeah.
ones participating, and Carly works there. So that's great. Okay, I think up next is Alice with Friends of Family Farmers. Thank you so much, Molly.
Hello, everyone. Let me share my screen, make sure I'm on the right tab. Thank you all so much for spending your evening with us today. I know it's a very hot day and I'm sure everyone is exhausted, and I really appreciate it. I am with Friends of Family Farmers. My name is Alice Morrison, and I will make my presentation full screen. There we are. Hello. Oh, good. I have a transition in there. Well, my name is Alice Morrison. I am one of the co-directors of Friends of Family Farmers. There's my contact info on the screen. I'll share that with you all at the end as well. And I am calling in today from Junction City, Oregon, in northern Lane County, which is the land of the Kalapuya and Siletz folks. And I am really happy to share with you kind of how FOF approaches advocacy as part of our whole outlook on creating the vision of a food system built by and for a thriving community of small and mid-sized socially and ecologically sustainable farmers across the state. So first I'm going to tell you a little bit about FOF, and then we'll tell you how to get involved in our advocacy and the kinds of things that we do and how farmers fit in. So this is our mission statement. I am not going to read it out loud, but it will be included in the PowerPoint that we send out after this call. And this is our vision statement. As we said before, we are always working to create a future where agriculture is built by the small and mid-sized farms, where people, communities, and ecosystems thrive, and equitable policies improve the lives and land for all Oregonians. Oop, let's go. So this is a lot of text, but FOF was founded in 2005 by a group of concerned farmers, neighbors, and food advocates and community members because of the pressure that they were feeling from industrialized agriculture in their community, and the fact that they didn't feel like there was a voice for any other type of agriculture in Oregon at the time. So they came together to do some systems change work at the legislative level, and that's always been a core tenet of how we go about our outlook here at FOF. We also have some programs that have come out of this work and developing solutions in many different ways, but we were started as an advocacy organization and are so proud to be in this space still. We have, as I said, we have programs for farmers, eaters, and then our advocacy program, which kind of bring the two together. But today I'll be talking about the ways that farmers and farm workers can plug into our advocacy model and bring their voices to the conversation around the state. Briefly, our farmer programs, our two biggest farmer programs are the Oregon Pasture Network, which is a community of practice for pasture-based livestock farmers. We have a membership program for that program that will come with some marketing support for our farmers. Right now, we have 75 members with just under 10,000 acres in production represented within our membership. And we have a pastured product guide that those folks are a part of. We also have some peer-to-peer learning opportunities. And then we also have our education series, which are open to the public. And we do one in the spring and we do one in the fall/winter. We're experimenting with pushing it further into the winter so that folks are not conflicting with slaughter dates and such. But those classes cover everything from pasture and forage management to animal husbandry to business viability and how to diversify your income stream. And we're looking forward to some really interesting opportunities with our new advisory committee members at the Oregon Pasture Network. Look out for those coming soon. We also run Oregon Farm Link, which is a platform where land seekers and land holders can come together and find solutions to keep Oregon farmland in production and find those non-traditional pathways to land security. Of course, there's a lot of renting and owning. There are also some folks who are looking for a more communal way of passing farmland along that can happen at Oregon FarmLink. We also, within that program, have a special new service that we offer for BIPOC farmers called the Navigate program, in which BIPOC farmers who are seeking land security can get one-on-one assistance and a one-on-one tailored plan to help them through that land security journey, because it is so daunting and so complicated, and every piece of land is so different and every farm plan is so different, and matching those two up can be very difficult. So we have a program that's run by our navigator, Sylvia Cuesta, that provides that plan, as well as subsidized access to legal services and help with due diligence. Like Sylvia will go on the walks with you and make sure that the water resources are there, that everything matches up with your farm dream, to not even dream, farm plan. Folks are serious. And okay, I'm rambling. I'm gonna move on to our EATR programming, Informations. This is where our farmers, we give a platform for farmers to speak directly to their communities. Obviously, this used to be an in-person event, but during the pandemic, we switched to a virtual model that has been pretty successful, because, you know, an in-person event, as we've all learned, is wonderful for community building, but it also excludes everyone who's not in that physical community. So we will be continuing this as a webinar series, and hopefully have some hybrid events in the future where farmers can speak directly to their community on the issues that matter most to them. And I'll be talking about this program and some dates we have picked out in the future. So now we're at advocacy. So legislative work, agency work, and public education work are the three types of things that we do for our advocacy work at FOF. As you can see, this is another photo from that same lobby day that that Molly shared earlier, different angle, same signs. But yeah, in the legislative work, we propose and advocate for new policies to create opportunities, reduce barriers. It's kind of how we sum up the types of work that we do. In the agency work, we work with agencies. That's the next step, that once that law is passed, we work with agencies to make sure that agricultural policy is implemented with equity and small, sustainable, and locally focused producers in mind. And I'll talk about the specific working groups that we've been a part of in a little bit. And then public education work, we provide platforms and opportunities for farmers to raise their voices and connect with their community on issues that they care most about, including Informations, but there's a couple other opportunities that I'll talk about in a moment. So like Ira, I wanted to give you some insight into how our policy creation process looks. We only work on things that come from our constituents, are the farmers who we work with. We conduct on a biennial basis. As our friend from the Oregon Food Bank said, the legislature works on a biennial calendar here in Oregon. So on the short session years, like 2022, we take some time to go back to our community and really drill down on what the pain points are. And we did that via 12 focus groups, 7 conducted by us, 5 conducted by some partner organizations, and a survey which we gathered about 513 responses to this year, this go around. And those come together with, you know, continual feedback from our program participants and folks who are moving through the service provision type of work that we do. And then we take all of that information, distill it down into the common themes and most urgent things to take care of, and then we explore program solutions. I know that everyone in this room, all of the folks that are here tonight for this panel, do a lot of great work, and there's never enough time to tell everyone about it, and there's never enough capacity to help everyone. So the first thing that we look at is how any of those problems could be solved by realigning our programs or referring people to other existing programs that could be helpful. But then when those things are systemic and not able to be solved by just more resources and more webinars or more information, then that's when we take those ideas that we've gotten from our farmer base and distill them down into a proposed policy. We draft something up and then review it against our organizational values and the equity lens that we apply to our work. And then we go back to our partners. And that's kind of where we are right now, is we have an idea of what we'd like to move forward with for 2023. And we're in the process of contacting key stakeholders and talking to partners and constituents about what they think about what we are thinking of putting forward, because nothing happens in a vacuum. And I'll talk about this on the next slide, but making sure that we are working very closely with our partners and the other folks in this space is really important to FOF, and is the only way that we will succeed as a movement, the local food movement in general. And then the last step is to lean on our policy experts and the relationships that we've built over our 17-year history, as well as our policy staff, to see what the best way of going about it in a technical sense is. Is this a grant? Is this a tax credit? Is that what that looks like? That's definitely informed by our partners, but sometimes there is some strategy that comes in on the policy side in those decisions. And then after all of those things happen, that's when we approach our, well, there are legislators who are in constant communication with us, but that's when we approach folks to say, hey, this is an issue that I know you care about, and I want you to introduce this piece of legislation to move it forward. Then who we work with, all the organizations on this call. We've worked with everyone here quite a bit, and we love being in coalition with all of you. The formal coalitions that we belong to are the Oregon Community Food Systems Network, the Stand Up to Factory Farms Coalition, the Oregon Organic Coalition, and the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition. The agency working groups that we are present in are the ODA Meet Stakeholders Working Group and the Oregon Global Warming Commission Water Roundtable. Megan convenes that, who you'll hear from in just a moment. And I know that I did not get the formal name of that group correct. I'm sorry, Megan, in advance. There's a lot of acronyms, but that's how I think of it. And
Alice, we have just about a couple minutes left.
Great. So I'll just run through this really quickly. The type of things that you can do with FOF that will help you do to participate in the advocacy realm and to make policy change. In the legislative session, we, of course, will go through that policy creation process that I outlined. We will be having advocacy trainings in the fall/winter. There'll be dates on a future slide. And we are indeed planning our 2023 Day of Action, our lobby day at the Capitol. The Capitol itself will be under construction, so we will not be allowed to be on the steps, but don't worry, we're getting a park permit to be in the yard next door. So, well, that's the plan right now. We haven't secured it. It's happening as we speak. So we will indeed be setting up some in-person meetings for folks, and there will be a virtual Day of Action as well for folks who can't be physically there. We will also set up legislator meetings and go with you and coach you through it any time that you would like to talk to your legislator, but that's a very daunting process. So we are there for you in that regard too. Also, if you would like to speak at a legislative hearing, we may contact you and say, hey, I know you care about this issue and you're directly impacted by it. Would you like to speak? We'll help you prepare what you'd like to say and go through the process. Also, submitting written testimony is an option. In terms of agency advocacy, working group participation, there are times when we invite our farmers to be part of those working groups if they have the bandwidth to do so, or if there's just a time, there are days when we bring a lot of our farmers together to present to these working groups that we're a part of. Also, there are a plethora of opportunities to make public comments during agency meetings, rulemaking processes regarding permitting and land use decisions. Also, that's something that we work on. The last part of things that we can help you with here at FOF is the public education piece of it. We would love to help you write an op-ed about an issue that you care about that aligns with what we're working on, or that, just aligns with the future we want to collectively move toward. So if there's an opportunity for you to submit an op-ed to your local paper and to bring this level of consciousness in your community to an issue that's really impacting you and your farm experience, we would love to help you with that. We also do get requests for interviews from news outlets on these topics that we work on. And so we often, if we're not the right person to speak on them, we want to find the right person to do that. So we may approach you. If you are an active participant, we may approach you and ask you if you're interested in doing any work with a journalist or for a FOF publication or video on our website. Okay, so these are some of the things that we have worked on in the past. And the Farm Direct Law allows farms to make value-added products for sale directly to consumers. Just a preview, there are some improvements that we're considering for 2023. We have big plans. We helped to pass the 1,000 bird exemption, which allows small farmers to process and sell up to 1,000 chickens on farm directly to their customer. We helped to secure the small farmer designated seat on the Board of Agriculture. And that is a regulatory, not a regulatory, it's a advisory board for ODA. We helped to secure a $2 million grant fund in the 2021 legislative session to improve access to meat processing facilities in Oregon. And we blocked the bovine manure tax credit, which is a highly greenwash tax credit that would have gone to 3 Mile Canyon for not actually reducing their emissions. Anyway, the last thing that I have here is how to get involved. I would highly encourage you to get on our email list and give your whole address. I know that that sounds daunting, but that's how we send you district specific communications. So that's the most effective thing you can do, is to show up to talk to your legislator about something that impacts you, especially if because every legislator is on a committee. And if you happen to live in the district of someone who's on the committee that's holding back the solution to a problem on your farm, we want you to be able to talk to them. And so if you don't put your address in to the database when you are signing up for the email list, you'll only get statewide alerts. You won't get those district specific communications. We only send out one physical letter per year because we can't afford to send any more. And there's a button you can push to never receive that letter also. So we promise not to send you out anything else. It's very expensive. So look out for our white paper coming out next month. This will outline the results of our 2022 survey and our priorities and policy recommendations for 2023. We have some big stuff in the works, but because we work in ways that makes corporate agribusiness very angry, we have to be strategic about our timing, which is why I'm not telling you more details right now. We also are planning some advocacy workshops and informations. They'll be paired together. There's an advocacy workshop and an information specifically about a topic we're working on in 2023. So it'll be like build a skill on November 1st related to advocacy, then hear about an opportunity to apply it. Same thing in December and January, the first week of the month, we'll have 2 opportunities to learn more and get more involved right before the legislative session starts in late January of next year. And I do believe that that's it. So thank you very much. Sorry, I sped up quite a bit at the end there.
No problem. Thank you, Alice, for squeezing so much in. And I know these timelines are super tight. So yeah, super impressive amount of stuff going on, just like all of these organizations. So let's see if there are any questions for Alice. And you should be able to unmute yourself now or drop something in the chat.
Oh, hi, Roberta. I didn't see you on the call. So nice to have you here. Shout out to Roberta. She said so in the chat, but she went through the Navigate program with Sylvia and found some land to build her farm.
So awesome. Great. Thanks, Alice. Let's see. We have 2 more presenters. Thanks, everyone. Megan Kempel with the Oregon Climate and Agriculture Network. You are up next.
Okay. Super. Let me switch my display here. Okay. Hi, I'm Megan Kempel, co-director of the Oregon Climate and Agriculture Network, and I'm going to be sharing about our policy work. Our mission is to advance climate resilience on farms in Oregon through collaboration, education, and policy advocacy. We work with farmers, researchers, technical assistance providers, nonprofits, and policymakers to promote, improve, and better understand farming for climate resilience in Oregon. What is farming for climate resilience? It's not about a single practice. It's or a rigid methodology. It requires a holistic approach that includes a diverse set of practices that are pretty well laid out here. These are commonly referred to as the 4 soil health principles. Every farm, every ranch will have its own geography, conditions, and management needs to find solutions that work for them. Most of these practices are not new. They're based on traditional Indigenous and Black land management practices. And what are healthy soils practices? They include no-till and reduced tillage, cover cropping, compost application, rotational grazing, crop rotation, nutrient management. These are just some examples. Hedgerow plantings, riparian plantings, silvopasture, and agroforestry. There are lots of benefits of healthy soils practices. They not only have the potential to sequester carbon in the soil, but they can build healthier soils, improve productivity, improve water retention and filtration on farms, and generally help farms become more resilient to a changing climate, in addition to that potential for mitigation through both sequestering carbon in the soil and then reduced inputs that can have that can help to reduce emissions as well. I want to share with you some policy solutions, some ways that we can help to advance these practices, promote and support farmers in implementing these practices using policy as our lever. So I'm going to give you a little background and then share some opportunities with you. So after a really extensive stakeholder engagement process that ORCAN and a number of partners on this call participated in, the Oregon Global Warming Commission released a natural and working lands proposal, providing recommendations about how the state could advance carbon sequestration on Oregon's natural and working lands, including Oregon's farms and ranches, so including agriculture. And among other things, the proposal recommends that the legislature fund the development of a comprehensive climate smart agricultural program, which would evaluate and advance strategies to incentivize soil health, practice adoption, as well as other climate smart practices. And the proposal states that the program should promote climate smart management practices, promote farmer to farmer learning. We know that farmers learn best from other farmers, integrate outreach and education, include soil health demonstration projects, so related to farmer learning, that farmers learn best by seeing what other farmers are doing through demonstration of those practices on the land, and highlight soil health improvement efforts. So with profiles, for example, about what's working well on farms in Oregon. So this is what the Global Warming Commission's proposal laid out for what a climate smart ag program should look like. And ORCAN and many of our partners support all of these recommendations. We really see a lot of the feedback we gave reflected here. And now we need to make sure that these recommendations are implemented. So right now, this is just a white paper sitting on a disk, and there's a lot of action right now to move it forward. And I want to share some opportunities with you. There are a number of opportunities to advance the policy recommendations in the Global Warming Commission's proposal. We, ORCAN, and our partners are prepping for the 2023 legislative session, which you may all remember is the long session, February through June. And we hope to see legislation, which I'm kind of going to lay out 4 different pieces here. And this is just the very beginning of our policy development. So this is not dialed in. There are no bills yet, but bills have to be introduced. A legislator has to make a request for a bill to be drafted September 23rd. So that's really soon, that a concept has to be just formed, at least a rough concept. And so we're working to figure out what we think the rough concept should be to advance carbon sequestration and climate resilience on Oregon's farms and ranches. So one, we have a soil health specialist position at the Department of Agriculture now. It's a brand new position. Mike Badsmarowski has been in the position for less than a year, and the position is temporary. So we believe this position should be permanent. So we want the legislature to make the position permanent. We want the legislature to authorize and create authorized creation of a soil health program or climate smart agriculture program. We want the legislature to say that the state should develop a soil health plan and provide some funding for them to do so. And we want the state to fund, we want the legislature to fund the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program. It's currently was just established, I believe, 3 sessions ago, not 2 or 3 sessions ago, and just last session was funded for the very first time only at $5 million. And that was just a kind of a stopgap during a short session to make sure that it could get launched, and it is now being launched, and the program needs stable funding going forward. And the reason this is important for soil health is that there is a component of the Oregon Ag Heritage Program, which is really focused on farmland preservation, which would provide funding for conservation management practices on farms. And many of those practices are soil health practices and practices that sequester carbon and promote climate resilience. And so if the legislature can fund this program, we will not only be preserving farmland, which has the potential to sequester carbon, has climate mitigation benefits because farms sequester more carbon and have fewer emissions than developed land. So simply protecting farms is a climate mitigation strategy, but protecting farms and then supporting farmers' climate-friendly ag practices is even better. So that's what we want the legislature to do. Fund this program so that we can have a portion of enough money to go around so that soil health practices can be supported as well. And then there is a federal policy opportunity, which I am really excited about. It's called the Agricultural Resilience Act. I think I actually mistyped it here. It's Agricultural Resilience Act, and also known as the ARA. And the Ag Resilience Act is a roadmap to achieving net zero ag greenhouse gas emissions through research, soil health, farmland preservation. You can see the list here. It expands and improves existing federal programs like Sustainable Ag Research and Education and the Conservation Stewardship Programs. Federal programs would provide farmers and researchers with funding to promote climate resilience. And then the piece that ORCAN is really excited about is that it has a component, a section in this act, which provides federal grants to fund state soil health programs. So $5 million to states to fund their soil health work. So if we could get started, we would be in a position, if we could make a soil health plan, for example, we would be in a position to take advantage of that $5 million when the Ag Resilience Act passes. But for now, we have to focus on passing the Ag Resilience Act. So you can get engaged with ORCAN's work. We're engaging with Oregon's ag community, our partners, farmers, researchers, technical assistance providers, educators, to advocate for policies to advance climate resilience on Oregon's farms and ranches. And if you're not already engaged with ORCAN's work, you can complete an engagement form that's on our website. That's our website. I've also shared this with Matt, and I'll put this in the chat in a few minutes here. To indicate how you'd like to be involved. We have a little survey that probably would take you maybe 10 minutes to complete, to identify yourself, tell us a little bit more about you and your interests, and let us know if you'd like to be involved in our policy advocacy work or our other programs. We want you to get engaged. And I just want to really put in a plug for having fun with policy. If there is something you don't like, the system is broken, we can actually fix it sometimes. Our state legislature is actually relatively accessible. The people here, the faces that you see, the presenters, the orgs that have been sharing today do have access sometimes to legislators. And if there's a problem, we can sometimes advocate for you and try to create a policy fix the problem. So it doesn't always work, and it can be really hard sometimes, but it does sometimes work, and you've heard some great success stories today. So I hope you'll get engaged and take advantage of the resource people here to advocate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate that. And I think I found the website for the Agricultural Resilience Act at the federal level and put that in the chat. But yeah, if there's another one, you can put it in there too.
Great.
Yeah, great. Any questions for Megan? Let's see, I can let you all unmute yourselves. Okay, so we have one more presenter, Carly Boyer, is representing National Young Farmers Coalition, and then we'll move into general Q&A and discussion with the remaining time that we have. And thank you all so much for sticking with us. I know it's a long, hot evening and a lot of screen time, but hopefully you're finding some exciting and interesting tidbits here tonight. So Carly, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Matt. I'll share my screen here. Let's see here. Do y'all see that?
I
didn't see it.
It's coming along. It's just taking its time.
Okay. Did the thing.
It's trying.
Okay. Let's see here. Maybe I'll do it again. So I'll stop the share and try it again. Did that work this time?
Let's see. It says Carly. Oh, it's going. It's just taking a. Yep, there it is. I see it.
Okay, great. I think even the computer is tired. It's been a long, hot day, and it's been so great to watch all of your presentations. I'm really honored to be present with all of you today. And big thanks to everybody listening and watching. Make sure you're hydrated. I've been trying to stay hydrated. Definitely feeling the close of this. Oh, and I'm a little nervous as well because I've not presented in a group before post-college. So I'll just jump in. My name's Carly Boyer, and I'm a land advocacy fellow for this year and next year, and I'm representing the National Young Farmer Coalition, which is a federal organization. Just to start a little bit about myself, I'm a fourth generation Oregonian, and I grew up in a farming family. I've worked in food production, horticultural nurseries, and a variety of farms. And witnessing the many challenges the farmers face, I was motivated to go into food systems and farmer advocacy. I recently graduated from the Public Policy Planning and Management program at U of O, and it really was super empowering. I've just graduated, and I'm already with the Land Advocacy Fellowship, and I'm also starting as an AmeriCorps Rare member, serving as a Local Foods, Local Places program coordinator for Bohemia Food Hub in Cottage Grove. I'm also a board member for Rewald Portland. So you want to know about National Young Farmer Coalition. It originally began in 2009 at the Stone Barns Young Farmer Conference in New York, and they really got together to help advocate for young farmers, which was a demographic that wasn't really being represented on the national scale, and they felt really excluded in the farm bills. So they organized, were sponsored for a few years, and became 501c3 in 2016. Let's see here, I need to change the little view option here. So just about what they're about. We believe we have one generation to transform agriculture in service to our communities and the land. We are that generation. The goal is to shift power and change to equitably resource our new generation of working farmers. And we envision a just future where farming is free of racial violence, accessible to communities, oriented towards environmental well-being, and concerned with health over profit. A little bit about the land equity, excuse me, a little bit about the land equity fellowship. So it's a 2-year advocacy and leadership fellowship for current and aspiring farmers and ranchers. There's 100 fellows that were selected to participate, and it's a majority BIPOC cohort. The fellowship includes mentorship, professional development, advocacy training, and opportunities for group work. In March, we are all going to fly to DC to advocate for the campaign 1 million acres. And there's a big emphasis on the 2023 Farm Bill. So some guiding principles are: farmers are leaders and change makers. We farm for our health. We work for racial justice and collective liberation. Land is foundational. Policy change is necessary for a radical future. We farm for climate resilience. We are farmers in solidarity with farm workers. We challenge capitalism. We work across issues, and we express global solidarity. This picture here is a fellow land advocacy fellow who's met with her local senator. Farm advocacy is research driven, and Young Farmers Coalition has done a lot of research papers on a variety of topics, and some important stats that are really the cornerstone of our platform is that 900 million acres of land in the US are in agriculture, and it represents 132 billion to the US GDP just by farms alone. And really importantly, to acknowledge that 95% of all farmers are white, and white individuals own 98% of farmland and receive the vast majority of agriculture-related financial assistance. And as well, since 1982, developers have bulldozed, paved, built homes on farmland across the country, permanently removing 25 million acres of land from farming in an area roughly the size of Indiana. So all of these factors play a big part of our work. The 1 million acres for the future Farm Bill campaign is calling on Congress to invest $2.5 billion in the 2023 Farm Bill to facilitate equitable access to 1 million acres of land for the next generation of farmers. Our nation must take action now to facilitate secure, affordable access to land for young farmers and farmers of color. So our asks are: coordinate federal land access initiatives, eliminate inequities in land ownership and access, invest in voluntary community-led farmland protection that keeps land in the hand of growers, expand access to credit and help farmers compete in the real estate market, support and incentivize farm transition, support farm viability for young farmers and farmers of color, and invest in data collection, reporting, and research on farmland tenure, ownership, and transition. You can learn more about our campaign and the Action Network on our website, which is just youngfarmers.org. Please participate by starting with our newsletter. You can become a member for as little as, I think, $35 a year. And that includes training and educational opportunities. And generally with policy, the best strategy to get involved is to talk to your elected officials and representatives, talk to the press and be a thought leader, organize your community, join local chapters or action networks for collective leverage and bargaining. There's been a lot of talk of coalitions, and that is a super effective way to advance all of these issues. And then also write, film, and podcast about your experience and interview other farmers. Solidarity is really essential in moving all these issues forward. So we had a training in my fellowship recently about writing op-eds, and they're a really essential tool And so the theory is young farmers, when resourced and trained to share their stories with lawmakers, can remake the food system to become more equitable, just, and in service to our communities and land. So the story is your own personal narrative rather than something broad and impersonal. Your personal experience really makes all the difference, especially for a national platform where a lot of our representatives may be disconnected to the people. So if you choose to do an op-ed, the story is all about who is your audience for, like who are you writing to, what do they know about farming and land issues, what action do you want them to take, and what do you want them to learn. You got to think about where your story will be shared and maybe specific language to that platform. And then also create personal boundaries to make sure you're not talking about things that you don't want discussed in the public sphere. So all those things to be really helpful. I'm going to be writing an op-ed here very shortly. And then this is just like a template for a pitch to a publication if you want to do an op-ed, but this is also very similar to what we would do if you wanted to write to your local representative. It is a really powerful tool to connect in handwritten letters, even if you just generally base from a format. It makes a big difference to connect, and handwritten and snail mail letters are also super effective, as well as phone calls and emails. So getting engaged with them is essential. And then using the tool of press is also a huge part of how National Young Farmers is building our campaign for the 1 million acres. So I'm going to be meeting Senator Jeff Merkley in August at the Headwaters Farm Incubator Project. I'm really excited for that opportunity, and we've been really supported, Michelle and I, through the Young Farmers organizers. And I think all of the other presenters today have been really talking about that power of being supported through your organizations. I'm totally a beginner at all of this. And so it really is powerful to kind of organize my thoughts and my story to be able to leverage all of these important asks for the next farm bill. Building relationships is the most effective way to make political change happen. When we organize together, we make things happen. So thank you for your time today. Thanks for your patience with my rusty presentation, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks so much, Carly. That was great and inspiring. And yeah, we'll just open it up for any questions for Carly first before we open it up for general Q&A and discussion. So let me find the spot where I can let you unmute. Okay, there we go.
I wanted to kick off with a question, but first, thanks, Carly, for your presentation and your courage for presenting to the group today. But you mentioned a couple of times the 2023 Farm Bill and some of your National Young Farmers advocacy efforts around that. And I'm realizing that maybe not everybody knows what the Farm Bill is. So I'm wondering if you could give just kind of a little overview of what that is, why that's such an important opportunity in 2023, or if other folks from the panel who work on federal policy have anything to add to that too.
Right. So the Farm Bill is the federal, just like catch-all document that covers all things agriculture and food related. And I'm sure people could expand further on this, but it happens every 4 to 5 years, and it is absolutely critical for setting the next wave of policy that's going to happen on your state level and your local level, because this, we have this whole top-down political system. So it really can enact huge change, and it's like historically has systemically left out a lot of our citizens. And so right now we really want to try and correct a lot of that to make it much more representational for small farmers, young farmers, beginning farmers, people of color. Really essential. A lot of times historically, the Farm Bill has represented much more industrial farmers and larger issues. So if anybody wants to extrapolate on that, please do.
Great, thanks. Any other questions for Carly? Okay. So I'm going to stop the recording and